Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here, and I am so excited. I am so grateful. I'm so overwhelmed with appreciation for you. Last week, we surpassed 40,000 downloads of this podcast. What? Can you believe it? I'm so excited. It's just, it continues to be such a gorgeous reminder that I can let it be easy. This is the easiest, most fun, fulfilling, expansive, fabulous thing of all the fun, expansive, fabulous things that I do. And I could still do this part. I could have these fantastic conversations. I could feel my personal up level every time I sit down to record yet another dreamy conversation with yet another phenomenal woman saying yes to herself. But none of that would matter if it wasn't for you. If you weren't listening, if you weren't supporting the show, if you weren't sharing the episode with a friend, if you were not talking about these conversations, if you were not sending me love notes telling me that it was impactful for you, I'm so grateful for you. I only get to do this dreamy stuff if you say yes. So I only get to be me if you're you and you say yes. So thank you so much. I just treasure your support. I also treasure your beautiful reviews. So if you have not taken the time to write a review, I would so appreciate that. If you do not know how to do that, you can scroll down on the screen that you are looking at the podcast on. And after the description of the overall show, you'll see a list of 5 stars. So you can click 5 stars and you can rate the show. And then right below that, it reads write a review. And you can click on that link and it will take you right there. So I would be so appreciative if you wrote a review, take a screenshot and DM me with that on Instagram or email me at hello@phineaswrighthouse.com. And I have a very special thank you for you after you do that. So thank you so much. I also wanted to let you know that I am over the moon excited about our Paris and Versailles trip, which is December 27th through January 2nd. I know, I told you last week, I've been having some big feelings, and I'm just really determined and inspired to be intentional about how I want to show up for myself, for Amelia, for this beautiful community in 2025. And I intend to ring in the new year like a queen, because that's how I'll be signing off at the end of 2025, like a queen. And I am inviting you to join me in that. I am only taking 4 women on this trip, and it is luxurious and intentional and amazing. at every turn. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes to get more information about that. Save your spot. And really, I know that it sounds close. It's just a few weeks away, but the only things you have to do are one, check your calendar, two, save your spot, three, book your plane ticket, and four, pack your suitcase. That's it. You could find out that you have a work trip to Buffalo, New York tomorrow and get all those things done. So I know you can do this, and it will be a million times more fun than Buffalo, New York. No shade on Buffalo. Okay, now to today's guests. Katie K. May is with us today. She is a DBT Linen Board of Certification clinician. She is the owner and executive director of Creative Healing Teen Support Centers. She is the author of the book, You're on Fire, It's Fine. She's helped thousands of teens cope with their emotions and understand their feelings of depression, anxiety, and self harm. But once upon a time, she was a teen on fire. She numbed her feelings she had inside with self harm, drug use, shoplifting, sneaking out, and anything to extinguish the pain she felt every day. An unexpected pregnancy in her 20s finally brought her pain into perspective, and it began a journey to break a generational cycle of hurt and fight her way back to a life she could fully embrace as her own. And in the process, she found her life's calling. She's also learned what it's like to parent a fire feeler in raising her own teen. As a parent of a teenager and a specialist in teen self harm, she understands the complexities of parenting a kid with overwhelming emotions. Her mission is to help teens know they aren't weird, bad, wrong, or different for feeling the way they do. And she wants to help parents create an environment where they are deeply understood and are fully accepted for who they are. I invite you to glean great understanding and, gosh, just gratitude for the beautiful work that Katie is up to in the world. And I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Katie May, I feel like you are one of those people that you have to say your first and last name together every time you're speaking, even if it's the 100th time that we've spoken, which is certainly not the case. This is the first time we've spoken, and I can't even tell you how excited I am about this conversation and how appreciative, even before you utter a word, of your time and the beautiful work that you are doing in the world. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me into the conversation.
It's so good. Um I am a mother of a 10-year-old,
Mhm.
but I am the age of a grandmother of a 10-year-old. And so it's been certainly an interesting journey to get there that took way longer than I thought was necessary until it happened. And I cannot even tell you how thrilled I am to be parenting a young girl in my mid 50s when I know things and I have insight and I'm doing this spiritual and personal development work, and I am supposed to be her mother. And so having conversations like this help me. It feels like getting an oil change on my car. It's like preventative maintenance to
Oh,
know, like, how can I, like, I know what am I trying to say? I am intentionally casting votes for the woman that I desire to be on a
yes.
daily basis. Sorry. This is how you know I'm not lying.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. My audience knows, like, oh, she's crying. That just means it's an episode. Um and so I know that those things that I'm doing in me are, of course, having a ripple effect on how I parent, but also to have this immense awareness that there's so much that I don't know, and I'm very
Yeah.
curious, and I want to be available to all information that can be in service to me, to Amelia, to this community that listens to this podcast. And so having these conversations on such a vast array of topics because of the nature of the podcast and the leading question, I just feel like, ooh, it's such a fun little breadcrumb. Like, oh, I wonder who needs to hear this. And I wonder who needs to know this in addition to me, because I'm so thrilled. So, again, no pressure, but we're all very, very happy that you're here.
I feel no pressure. And there's so many things that you just said that I could respond to, but I think what I'll leave it at for now and then allow you to lead our conversation is that, your story is different than mine in that my pregnancy at 26 was a surprise, the best surprise that I could have and
Totally.
change my life in the best of ways. But I was just reflecting recently on what I know now as a 42-year-old and how I would have parented differently and how I show up for my nieces and nephews differently than I did when my own child was that age. And I think that, I don't know, like we're never ready and we're also ready when we're ready, if that makes sense. And it's just such a
Absolutely.
journey. And I love that you're open to learning and growing as I still am learning and growing because that's the greatest gift that we can give our children is to keep learning and growing.
Absolutely. And I have this, not that parenting always goes to this extreme, but the sticky note that just caught my eye when you were speaking says that you can't be furious and curious at the same time,
Love. Yes.
right? And it's just, it is such a, a way that I'm embracing every day, but really, with regard to parenting, especially this unicorn of a human
Yes.
who not only is she amazing and fabulous and meant for me,
Yeah.
I am equally amazing and fabulous and meant for her. And so, because of that, I feel like I have this opportunity and responsibility
Mhm.
to advocate for her, to champion her, to get her beautiful sketches of gorgeous gowns in front of Vera Wang. Like, I'm like, I am your girl, queen. Put me, like, I will get you in any room you desire to be in until you tell me to stop because I am supposed to be your mom. So it is, I didn't realize I was going to go on this total love fest of Amelia, but I do feel like it is such a great, it's been such a great thing for me, even with the weight. I decided that I was ready to have a baby a year before you did. So at 25, I was like, okay, I'm ready now. So we'll give it a month or two and then like we'll just get the show on the road. And then it
Yeah.
was 24 Mother's Days
Oh,
until some little human lived in our house that called me mom that,
yeah.
wasn't just trying to be nice. And and it's that felt like obviously when it was happening a really long time and really confusing.
For sure.
And the moment that we got our referral from China that they had matched us, I
Mhm.
was like, okay, well, that wasn't very long. Let's just go. Like now we're here. Now I'm going this way. So um it's hard to believe that things could get rocky.
Mhm.
And but I don't want to be unaware
Mhm.
of what's available and how I can support her
Mhm.
in the case that they do go off the rails a bit.
And rocky might not be the word. So I have a 16-year-old, and just to preface with, I will share I have a 16-year-old, but no other identifying details because that's what my child has requested in all of my media appearances. And so I have a 16-year-old, and we have a great relationship and always have. And I'm a teen therapist. So in my mind, I was like, well, this is going to be the best years that we have together because I vibe with this age range. And yet my 16-year-old is still 16 and wants to be private. And when I say, "Who are you talking to?" It's no one. And they, don't want to give me the details. And they're gravitating more towards friends than towards hanging out with parents. So all the developmentally typical things that still bring up grief and disappointment and sadness and loss in me. And so it's not necessarily that there's these extremes of behavior that we're managing at home at this time, but it's still different than when they were 10.
Mm, please say more about that because um it's so interesting. I don't want to like make it sound like I don't know things, but I mean, like we sometimes we just obviously know more about our own personalities. And so you may have gathered this in our short time together that I'm an extrovert and Amelia
Mhm.
apparently is an introvert. And
Yeah,
I've heard of those. And I've heard about people that need downtime and quiet and all of those things. And I just think that's what sleeping is for. So it's really interesting. And when I'll pick her up from school and I'm asking, how was school?
mhm,
Okay. Oh, great. What was, or good? What was good about it?
mhm.
This like one word
Yeah.
answers, and so I'm keep asking questions, and she's like, "Mom, I just don't wanna talk." And I
Mm.
say, "Well, if you actually answered me with a full sentence, I would stop asking you questions, but I feel like there's something that you're wanting me to go on a treasure hunt for." And so, you're right, it's not Rocky, but it's different, and
Yeah,
I want to well, I don't wanna F it up, first of all, and
sure.
I want to really honor her, and, yeah, so it's interesting when they're different than us, which is obviously, we know that, and it can still come as a surprise at times.
I think it's all things. So on one hand, it's interesting when they're different than you, and on the other hand, it's interesting when they're the same as you. My child and I have the same brain. You look at our map of ADHD tests and it's like word for word match on everything, but
Wow.
yet they are their own autonomous human being. So when I project, who I am and what I want onto them, I'm doing them a disservice of allowing them to be their own person. But what you're talking about with this exchange in the car with Amelia is so typical in varying situations with parents. It's called the transactional model. Basically, what I do influences you, and what you do influences me. And so it's like a dance. Every time you ask the question, Amelia doesn't want to talk, so she pulls back. But to your point, if she gave you something, you might pull back. And so it's really learning how to navigate those interactions together. And at the forefront as a parent, our responsibility is knowing our child's disposition and what they need. I had a similar experience. My child went away for a 2-week trip to Europe this summer with their school, and that was a big deal for me as a parent to let them go on a plane that far and not have me there and all of those things. And when they finally came home and I had missed them so much, and I wanted to be like, "So what did you do? Show me the pictures, do this, do that." But I knew that that kind of energy makes them withdraw, similar to how you're sharing with Amelia. And so I just sat there and was like, "Oh, I love you. I missed you. It was good to see you." And then over the next 2 weeks, it was like if I sat back, little drips and drabs came out and I was able to learn more. But I had to regulate myself. And I really think that that's the core of a lot of this, is that we as parents need to learn how to regulate ourselves so that we can be that stable force for our kids and they can come to us rather than being forced to us.
Right. Oh, I all of those words make perfect sense, and I like, "Yes, yes, yes," when I'm sitting here, and then in the car, I no joke, have a sticky note that says, "Amelia needs space,"
Mhm.
and I have to be okay with her having space, and I know she's in my space, so I know she's
Yeah.
safe, and yeah, it's just different. I just like want to crawl in there and see what's happening and make sure that well, that now I sound like a crazy person. So
You don't,
I
you sound like
actually
a
just
parent.
I do want to crawl in there and only because so, when she was younger, if she was having like she would just start saying things like, "Oh, I'm terrible at this."
Mhm.
And I was like, "What? What? What? Who ever said that to you? Like, what is happening? Who are these people you're spending the day with? I need to know who says they're terrible." And I like have her go because we have a lot of sticky notes around here. There's a sticky note on her mirror that says, "I am amazing and I can do anything." And
Mhm.
I like when she was younger, I would make her go to the mirror and say it, and she's rolling her eyes like, "I'm amazing and I can do anything." And I'm telling her, honey, there are moms that don't say that to their daughters. And like, so you can tell your therapist about how awful it was that I made you stand in front of the mirror and say you're amazing and that you can do anything.
It's interesting. I have a slightly different approach, and I don't think there's a right or wrong. And I'm a huge fan of accurate expression and accurate
Totally.
self-esteem. And the idea that my kid is not amazing at everything. Like, you suck at soccer. You should not play soccer. This is not your strength. But
Right.
you're amazing at filmmaking and performing arts. And so I think that, well, so the way that I grew up is that nothing was good enough. And so
Mm.
I didn't want to overcompensate and go the other way and say you're good at everything because I think that sets you up for failure as well. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just
Oh,
thinking
no, I
through
was
the
saying like
process.
she's amazing and she can do anything. She's not amazing at everything.
She's inherently amazing because she
She
exists and she's awesome and she's there. Yes.
100%.
So helping our kids understand and build confidence because they are confident in these things, and also knowing your deficits or weaknesses and deciding what you want to do about that, I think is a really good skill to have.
Totally. Yes. Yes. And I think one of the most important things for me as a mom is for her to, in looking back, to believe that I heard her
Yes.
and I listened to her. So when she did not have an enjoyable experience in the 4th grade,
Mhm.
and so she's going to a new school
I
this year,
love that.
and I'm
Yes.
really excited, and not everybody thinks that this is a great idea, but I'm really only concerned with Amelia and I and what we think.
I think when you can trust your kids' experience and you
Mhm.
can hear them and you can support them and help put them in environments where they can thrive, it's a beautiful thing. And you might not have fans when you're doing that. And
Right.
I know there are choices that I make and will make as a parent that my extended family or other people might not agree with or understand. And that's okay because it's our job to protect our kids, even if other
Right.
people aren't okay with that.
Right, and it wasn't even, um, I I wasn't necessarily needing to protect her from something bad that was happening. She made some observations
Mhm.
based on her personality. She is, I'm reading this book by Elaine Aaron. I believe her
Mhm.
first name is Elaine, Highly Sensitive Child.
Mhm.
And she just takes in information differently. And she is not the way that she takes information in
Mhm.
doesn't allow her to present as someone who conforms
Mhm.
to the checklist of a 4th grade teacher with 23 other students in the classroom.
I
So,
got you. Yes.
she says on the report card, Amelia, it would be really great if she participated in class. I'm like, can you say more about that? Well, Amelia is an amazing kid and I would love to hear what she has to say, but she doesn't raise her hand, she doesn't interact.
Mhm.
So I ask Amelia, "Can you say more about that, honey? Do you understand the concept or the topic? Do you need a little more time with the information?" "Well, sometimes I need more time." Like, "Okay, and is that why you don't raise your hand?" "Well, no, the boys just blurt out the answer, so why would I raise my hand?"
Mhm.
And I say, "Thank you very much, queen. That checks my box." Like, that's you don't need I don't think that you are not quote unquote participating in class. I think that you're taking in information of what is happening around you and you're making a decision that is in alignment
Mhm.
with you.
Sure.
and you're good.
Yeah. The quality that you're talking about, this highly sensitive quality, I talk about this in my book. I call it biologically sensitive. And the term I use for these individuals is a fire feeler. They feel their emotions so deeply, it feels like they're on fire with their emotions. And so, what I love about what you're doing and saying is that can go wrong and turn into impulsive and self-destructive behaviors when a fire feeler or biologically sensitive individual is put in an environment where they're chronically invalidated or unheard, because then it becomes their behaviors that's the way of conveying getting their needs met. And so
Mhm.
the more you can validate and the more you can meet your child's needs when they have this biological sensitivity, the more you are setting them up for a life where they feel regulated and okay with this quality that can be such a gift, but in the
Yes.
wrong environment can go very wrong.
Right. Right. And I consider, just on what the little I know about being biologically sensitive and what I'm learning every day about parenting,
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm wanting to continue to be aware of the environments that she is a part
Yeah.
of so that she is thriving.
Yes.
I do not need her to conform
Mm-hmm.
to what makes it easier in a classroom setting, because that will make it easier for her when she goes to high school, where she has to conform even more, which will make it easier when she goes to college, when she has to conform even more, to where she goes to her job, where she has to conform even more. And it's okay if you don't like it, because nobody likes it. Like, that doesn't sound anything like Wendy Harrop. So, no, that is not happening. Like, my whole life is about saying yes to yourself. So I can't tell her, "Oh, no, you don't, that yes to yourself is really, that's not gonna work until you are 50."
Yeah.
So that's, obviously not what I want. I hear on one side from my clients that are saying yes to themselves in exercising a muscle that has been very underused for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the coaching is, think about what you did when you were younger. What did you lose time doing? And, get back into that. And so, to experiencing women that are in a season of reinvention at the same time that I'm raising a young girl that is actually being required to abandon herself so that she can get in line with everybody else. I
Yeah.
can't do it.
I talk about this a lot in my work, especially like in my in-office therapy work, when a large percentage of our population, I would say, we identify underlying neurodivergence, ADHD, autism, things like that. And as a neurodivergent individual myself, I have built a life that works with how my brain works. I have built a life that works with my nervous system and the way that I regulate emotions. And that's why I'm a business owner and an entrepreneur and, create my own schedule. And so it really is, it takes work for an intentionality to for these parents and for my support for them to really turn the tide to thinking about how do I help my child create a life that works for them rather than fit them into the box of a life that they're supposed to be in, or that, how do I love them for who they are and help them have that life rather than make them who the world thinks they should be based on this structure that was created or the system that they're in at the moment.
Right. So, I'm makes me so happy that you have written this book. It makes me so happy that you are doing this work and are helping parents. Can you say more about the book? Like, what was the catalyst? What are you hoping that readers walk away with? And who, and there's so many questions, like, who
Yeah,
did you
sure.
write this book? Who did you write this book for? And why did you write it?
I can answer all those questions.
I know
Throw them
you
all at me.
can.
I got you. Yeah, so the book is called You're on Fire, It's Fine. The tagline is Effective Strategies for Parenting Teens with Self-Destructive Behaviors. And the answer to why I wrote the book is twofold. When I was 6 years old, I have a core memory of lying next to my bed and writing sad poetry in my journal. And at this point, as a 42-year-old, I have stacks of journals and poetry and writings. And so being a writer is just an innate part of who I am. And it has been a lifelong dream to be a published author. And so it was going to happen no matter what.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The topic is twofold as well. So part of the story is my own. It's my story as a troubled teen and how I grew up raised by a single dad who didn't know how to parent a biologically sensitive child like me. And it's the story of me parenting my own teen and working through their mental health concerns. But then on the flip side is the practical piece and the tips and the self-help for parents that came about because the work that I do and that my team does in the greater Philadelphia area, we started as just working with teenagers. We were teen therapists, but after about 4 years of not integrating parent work into our programs, we were recognizing how that was getting in the way of things working the way that we intended them to at home. Parents were hungry for knowing what to do and say, and they were either feeling helpless, left out, not a part of the process, or they were unintentionally disrupting the process with their own anxieties, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. And so we created a parent program to run concurrent to our teen program. And the book outlines the framework for the program that we run in our centers in Philadelphia area.
Oh, that's amazing. And how has that? I have two questions about that. First of all, how did the teenagers respond to you integrating their parents?
Mhm.
And then what have you seen the results? How has that worked out for you guys?
So outcomes have soared. We have seen so many more positive outcomes once parents have their own skills. The way
Amazing.
that we involve parents is it's not family therapy. So they're not
Sure.
together. It is parents are in their own separate skills group and they're learning the skills to respond to big emotions, to manage their own emotions, to create connection between themselves and their teen, to have direct communication and uphold limits without being judgmental. So there's so many really important parenting skills that they're learning, and they're learning them alongside other parents who are stressed or dealing with similar issues and concerns. So there's that validating component as well of I'm not alone. I have a place I can talk about these things. A lot of them will mention things like, I go out for coffee or lunch with my friends, but I can't bring up that Sally's not going to school and they're harming themselves when they're talking about Billy getting a scholarship to college somewhere. It just doesn't feel
Mm,
matched. And I feel a lot of guilt, shame, sadness, loss, grief about that. So this space is so special for them.
sure. Oh my gosh. It's such beautiful, beautiful work and needed.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you now, and it can be all of the things you already said, but the question that I was supposed to ask you at the beginning is how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
I love the question. And
Yay,
so I have many answers, but I'm going to
I
refine
bet.
it for you. Um, as a woman in my 40s, I feel that there is no greater confidence that I've had in any other season in my life. I can resonate with Amelia's not feeling good enough, or, some of those self-critical thoughts that show up in your early adolescence and onward. And so at this season in my life, there's a couple of things that I'm working on. I prioritize taking care of myself. I make sure I go to all of my appointments for a woman in her 40s. I go to the gym on a daily basis. Movement is such an important part of taking care of myself. And one of the sneakier ones and the ones I have to be more mindful and actively intentional about is noticing my own limits. I'm actually
Mm,
not extroverted, although I'm maybe an introvert extrovert. So I notice that there becomes a time in any kind of social context when I'm done, but I feel myself continue to keep trying and stretching beyond my
mm,
energy and my limits, and like I'm supposed to do that or I'll miss out on something if I'm not there. And so one of the things I'm really working on is noticing when my social battery is depleted and then leaving the situation and saying goodbye and being okay with that,
right.
because that's what my body needs. Because whenever I go past that limit, it's not good for me and I end up not feeling my best. They're like a hangover effect of that if I don't
Sure.
listen to myself.
Yeah, it's such a good practice. And I'm really thrilled for you that you are exercising that really this early. 42 might feel not early compared to where you've been, but I can tell you from your future that it's a really beautiful time to do that.
Yeah.
That's not something I really paid attention to until I turned 50. And so I just, you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
when you know better, you can do better. And that's what we're all doing. And so I appreciate that you are listening to your body and doing what is best for you and not making yourself feel wrong about it. And it's
Mm.
all of the things that you're doing in your work.
Right.
And so it's really interesting how sometimes we can be the last person to our own party, but it really it does act, even if that was already your practice, I feel like there are seasons in a woman's life that even though that practice might have been there, there needs to be some recalibration and some
Absolutely.
honing, just like with anything. If it starts to become a mindless habit, it's not as effective as
Right.
it was when it's intentional.
Absolutely. And there's something I say a lot in my work, it's parents go first. And I think that's true of any person that's in a leadership position, parents of a child, leader of a company, whatever it may be, is that if you expect something, if you want your child to listen to themselves and take care of themselves, you have to do that too. And you have to be modeling that. And so it's something that I think is important for all of us to be reflecting on is what am I showing my child versus what am I saying to my child? So I definitely want to practice what I preach.
Oh my gosh, I totally received that. I needed that reminder. Thank you very much. I I live on a small flower farm in New England and run a bed and breakfast. And
Wow.
it's so fun. I mean, my life is very dreamy and fabulous.
Yeah.
And it takes all day long every day.
Hmm.
And I've been recently in the practice of allowing Amelia to choose what delights her and how
Love
she
it.
wants to spend some time. And often that is centered around a screen, which is not my favorite. So
Mhm.
I had a really strict rule at the beginning and it worked great and it was fantastic. And then I noticed that a lot of moms thought my rule was awesome, but
Oh.
which was no screen time if the sun is up or there's school
Mhm.
tomorrow. And she's like sewing. She's a fashion designer at 10. She's been
Amazing.
sketching since she was 4 and she lives on a farm and she makes fairy houses in the woods. Like she does all of these amazing things.
Yeah.
And then I had an awareness that she was asking more. She's also, when she's at her dad's house, she gets a lot more screen time. He doesn't have
Sure.
the same rule that I do.
Mhm.
So she started asking more often. And so I had to really sit with that question and think, okay, I don't want to just have this rule that it worked when you were 2. Now you're 10.
Mhm.
I'm telling you all the time, like that I'm only available for what delights me. I ask her all the time, well, what's the most pleasurable thing you could have for breakfast? And that's what I'll make. And, I want her to be so in her decisions,
Mhm.
but that was something that I was not moving from because I think, appreciated the encouragement and praise and astonishment of other moms
Sure.
because of my hard and fast rule. And
Yeah.
so that was not my motivation for the rule. And so
Yeah.
I needed to rethink my action. And so now she has more freedom And she is actually, I'm going to share this with you and all the listeners because I feel
Ready?
like it was a very inspiring parenting move. So she has for the summer 2 hours of screen time that she doesn't have to ask about. She can just do it. And then she buys time from me. So if
Oh,
she practices the piano for 15 minutes, she gets an hour of screen time.
okay.
Now, that might sound like an imbalance, but if you have ever tried to ask her or get her to practice the piano, you would pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to not have that conversation. And now I will just be recording a podcast and hear the piano playing,
Beautiful.
so I don't even have to tell her, and sometimes she does it 3 times, so she will have played the piano for 45 minutes in one day without me saying a word, and
Yeah.
I don't care that she watched her iPad for 3 hours. I'm super excited that she practiced for 45 minutes, and we didn't have to have an exchange,
Right.
and she really is taking ownership of that, and she sets a timer, and she's really good about like, all those parameters make me not have to, check on her or make sure she's not being sneaky with I don't care. I just I feel like it has set her up to have agency in
Mhm,
this area, but also in a way that makes me feel good
mhm.
about the time, and she can buy it back with helping me outside, with farm chores, or if she that is a 30 minutes for an hour of screen time, and then reading or creative arts or playing, that's hour for hour.
Okay. What you're describing is what we call in the therapy world contingency management. It's a behavior management strategy. It's like if you do this, then you get that. And it's a way of increasing motivation and a ability to stay on track with a behavior because you're dangling the carrot of the thing they prefer most at the end of that.
Oh, I'm so glad it's a thing.
I like to balance that because I do think as parents, there are some things that are non-negotiables for us, and there are some things that
Totally.
we expect no matter what. And so I think there's an importance for these reinforcers and behavioral strategies because we have to, as parents, lead and guide the way sometimes. And then I like to balance that on the other side with like what I call limits rather than rules. And so that is helping our children to activate their own wise mind or their own ability to make
Mm,
decisions, not because it's a rule, but because they want to make a decision that's in service of their best interest. So an example might be like my 16-year-old during the summer, because they work very hard during the school year, they watch a lot of TV, they hang out a lot, they're relaxing. They don't yet have their license, so that means that they're home more than not at this point. And so it might be noticing, you've been on the couch watching TV all day. Do you think it might be a good idea to go take a walk or get some movement and allowing them to make a decision about what feels right within their body? Or maybe they're being willful and decide not to, or maybe they decide to. But some of those things helping them realize the why behind it, that it's not a rule that you must take a walk every day, but maybe it's good for you to take a walk if you've been watching a lot of TV.
right, because we're still parents. Like, we're not necessarily, I don't think our role is to impose our will,
Right.
but they're not emancipated just because we are enlightened or being intentional in our parenting. Like, there's still, these are some guardrails that are just good to know about so you can make a decision that's best for you.
Right, like giving them the information and then
Yeah.
allowing some controlled choices. I think one of the things that I remind myself pretty regularly now more than ever is that I have no control. Like I can have expectations, I can have guidelines, but the older your child gets, the less control you have. I can't pick them up and put them in the car and make them go to school. I can't force them to do anything. So all we can have is a good relationship and holding expectations that they want to meet because of that relationship.
Right. I can only imagine how much better of a parent you are because of the work that you're doing. How did that, like, how is that chicken and egg situation going. So were you parenting? How did you get into this work? And how is that influencing what you're doing in your own home?
Yeah, so I went back to school to become a therapist when my child was about 18 months.
Okay.
And from that point, started a career in child and adolescent therapy. And so have been in that field ever since. And I am someone who likes to learn and grow and is always educating myself. And so it was a constantly learning and iterating process. I think it was, or I know it was also informed by what I didn't want to bring with me from my own childhood. So it was this two-part process of here's what I know I don't want to do, and here's who I know I do want to be. And then let me learn everything I can to continue to be the best parent in my home that I can be. I will say, I think I'm a pretty great parent. And I
Me
was
too.
just, yes, we are. I think we all are. We're all doing the best that we can with the skills that we have.
Totally.
And the desire to continue to grow and learn makes us even better. I was just having this conversation with my husband where I think my downfall as a parent, or my regret, I will say, not my downfall, is that because I struggle with consistency and routine and doing things the same way, again, ADHD, I think that there are times when I could have been more firm or could have been more consistent with my child, and I
Mhm.
wasn't because my brain isn't wired that way. And
Mhm.
so I think sometimes I let things fall through the cracks that looking back, if I had held a firmer limit, maybe it would have ended up differently. And I say that to say, like, you can be a great parent and still have regrets and still
Oh,
have parent guilt
totally.
and still wish you did something differently. And in the end, it's all going to be okay.
Right. Right. We're great parents, but we're not robots.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of a moving target,
You got it.
right? Do you have more than one child?
This one. Yeah.
I heard something, I only have one also, and I heard something some recently a couple was telling me, like, when we had our first child, we are amazing parents. And then we had a second child and realized it has nothing to do with us.
Both of my siblings have two kids, and we've had that conversation about how much more they let go because there's two children to watch than just one.
Right. And they were saying, this couple that I was talking to were saying the kids, they're just not the same human.
Yeah.
It's a totally different game. So then they realized, oh, this was such a fabulous experience, more because this first child is the way that they are, not
Yeah.
because of our input, because we did the same things with the second one, and we're all having a completely different experience.
Which is something I talk about in my work too, is that if you have a biologically sensitive child, you do have to parent them differently. So I'll see a lot of parents that come in and say, but this, what I did with my other children isn't working with this one. And I say, of course, because they're different. So we have to do different things.
Right. Is there anything that you wish I asked you that I haven't asked you?
So one thing that I think is important to share that most parents resonate with when I share this is that I believe that parenting is forever a grieving process. We start
Mm.
with this child that needs us, that latches onto us, that comes to us for everything. And healthy development dictates that they just continue to move further and further away from us because they're supposed to.
Right.
But what that means is that we continue to grieve the loss of the child that we had to welcome in the child that we now have. And so we have to continue to look at ourselves and who we are every time our child changes.
Mm. Wow. Okay. That is very poignant. And I definitely resonate with that. I was formerly a wedding planner, so I did that for 30 years. And since I retired in 2020, it seems that I come out of retirement once a year to do one very special wedding.
Beautiful.
Yes. And at the time of this recording, that wedding was last weekend. And I've been working with this family for 14 months. It's been amazing. The wedding was a lot of details and moving parts, and I'm so happy for all the experience that I have because I did a great job at my job
Yeah.
on that day. It felt so good. And now we have to break up because their wedding is I've been talking to these people at a minimum once a week for 14 months, and now I haven't talked to them for 3 days, and it feels so bizarre, and that has been the case where I'm just deeply engrossed in this really intimate, special life event. I'm also a vendor, like, I'm not their family, which I get, but I'm, in it, and then all of a sudden, something fabulous happens, and we
Right.
break up. And so like,
Yeah.
it wasn't something terrible, no one was mad, it's just
Mhm.
so I understand this build up and fabulous manifestation of what we've been working toward, and then grieving on the
Right.
other side of that. So
Right.
I've never likened that to parenting. Can you like what tips do you have for the parents that you're working with, for me, and for those
Yeah.
listening? How can we do that well and not make it about us?
Yeah. So, first is recognizing that it's happening and allowing yourself to feel those feelings, not judging yourself for feeling sad, not judging yourself for feeling lost, because it is going to happen. And
Mhm.
also recognizing that it's not a one and done process.
Mhm.
It's a process when your kid starts taking the bus and going to elementary school. It's a process when your kid starts driving and everywhere in between there. Like every time there's this new moment of autonomy, you're going to grieve again, and that's okay. It's like teaching a puppy how to sit. It's not like you say it one time and it's done and it happens. It's over and over and over. And then in my book, I have a tool called the circle of support. And the essence of this is that your child is the target. And so they are always the center. And we cannot seek support inward. So we cannot expect that our child change or do something differently so that we're not grieving or so that we're okay. We have to build supports outside of that, either with a partner, our own parent, a peer, a parent group, because that validation and normalization for us in the process is so important. I went to a workout class yesterday, and one of the women was talking about her child just went off to college and she was grieving that. And other moms there were validating her experience and sharing how they got through it. So we need those connections. And they can happen anywhere. That's why I mentioned a workout class, whatever. They can happen anywhere, but as long as you have others who are supporting you so that your child doesn't feel like they need to keep it together or do something differently so that you're okay.
Right, because even I have 2 things to say from that. Even when, of course, you're not expecting your child or telling your child that they're responsible for this,
Right.
but they live in the house and they know our energy, and they have this they take things on, not just the things we hand them,
Yep.
but the things that they feel are their responsibility to pick up. I remember
Got it.
when my husband and I first separated, Amelia was she was just really concerned. And she
Sure.
was like, "Well, mom, who's gonna buy you Christmas presents?" And I was like, "Well, probably nobody, but that's okay." She's like, That is not okay. I'm really I need to make things for you." And so she was like made all these things, which is thank you so much. You totally like please do that if that is in your heart. And it is my responsibility to make sure that you are okay. It is not your responsibility to make sure I am okay. I will tell you that in this moment, I am so okay.
Yeah.
And if I am ever not okay, I might share with you what I'm experiencing, but not because you're supposed to do anything about it.
Right.
Just because I want you to know that sometimes things are not okay.
Or
And
because they can read your energy. And so it's important to acknowledge that. I went through a pretty sudden loss within the past couple of years. And so there were times when I would just be sitting on the couch and crying. And I'd
right.
have to say, I'm okay. I'm grieving right now and I am sad,
Mhm.
but I'm okay and I'm taking care of myself. And so just
Right.
acknowledging, like, you see this happening, but you don't need to do
Yes.
anything about it.
Exactly, because even before the announcement of the separation to her.
Yeah.
Clearly, something was happening, and she is a highly sensitive person and also lives in the house, and she's
Right.
not dumb, even though she was young.
Yeah.
And I think for me that there was a amount of time that passed between he and I making a decision
Sure.
and incorporating her into this
Of
information,
course.
which that was really painful because I knew that she knew that
Yeah.
something was happening,
Mhm.
and she knew that I knew,
Yeah.
and she also knew that I wasn't talking about it, and that is a different way than how
Right.
we typically do things. So it must be really bad because something is happening and she's not talking about it. I
Yeah.
need to worry. And so that was the thing that was making me want to speed it up because it's like I got to get it and I need to inject some truth into that narrative before it gets bigger
Yeah.
than what it needs to be. And my last question for you, and you touched on it with the empty nesting. So obviously, all of these other grieving periods you've also experienced in your parenting journey,
Mhm.
but you've yet to experience the empty nesting.
Yeah.
I'm super excited that I waited, well, that it took so long to have a baby in my house that I'm not going to empty nest for years. I did it backwards. I started
Yeah.
as an empty nester. What are some practical tips in addition to curating some community around it that the women listening can implement as they are experiencing empty nest?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I was just having this conversation with another friend that I have that's my age who also has a 16-year-old. And so I think it's very fresh on my mind. But what I would say is start building more of your life into life right now. I think I already mentioned today, but my child went on a 2 week trip to Europe this summer. And in the beginning, it was really hard and I was really anxious. And towards the end, towards the middle to end, I started doing more things for myself. Like, well, I don't have to consider coming home by X time for dinner because nobody's there to make sure that dinner is on the table for us. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to do this thing. And yes, I still missed my kid, but I was building things into my life that enriched my life and who I am and what I enjoy. And I don't think that you should wait until your child's out of the house to do those things. So go play pickleball, go take a walk with your friends at the park. I'm an active person. I don't know.
Okay,
Go do whatever other thing, take a pottery class. Like,
right.
go start doing those things now because honestly, when your kid's in high school, especially junior, senior year, and I'm seeing a lot of that shift right now as my kid goes into junior year, they start doing way more things with their friends than with you anyway. So now is the time to start building a life. Of course, you're going to miss your child, but you don't want things to literally be empty when they leave. You want to still have your own life alongside
Right.
that.
Right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate that because I think there are, preconceived ideas, even going back to the story of fourth grade. Like, well, these are the boxes that we check, and these are the things we have to do for the testing for the state and all of these
Mhm.
things. And there can also be a narrative around what emptiness looks like and what it feels like. And you might just be ready to complete with this cohabitation situation you've got going on. And it is okay for your
Yeah.
child to be thrilled to be leaving the house for college or whatever they're leaving for, and for you to be thrilled for the time that you had and embracing this next season.
What I think is the most important, because I'm so excited for my kid, I think what's most important is maintaining a strong relationship now and throughout the teenage years so that when they go away, it's because they're excited and it's developmentally appropriate and it's the next milestone for them. And it's not like, oh, I can't wait to get out of here, right? So,
Right.
like, make your home a place that they want to come back to on the holidays. And then you can be
Oh,
excited for them to go away because you know they're going to come back.
right. And sometimes that can be like, oh, I don't even know where to start to build a relationship like that. And sometimes a phrase that has been helpful for me when I need to redefine something in a relationship that I'm not necessarily wanting to complete completely with, but to say, this relationship is over. Are
Hmm.
you interested in starting a new one? So
Mhm.
you can just have this giant reset
Yeah.
of, we don't need to hash out, he said, she said, none of that. But from this new place today, what do we want to build? And what do we want this to look like? And how is it a vote for the people that we're both becoming
Yeah. I love
as your
that.
parent and you as this young adult that is continuing to evolve and grow?
Love it. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I have loved this conversation. Please tell everyone where they can find and follow you, where they can get the book, and anything else that you're up to.
Absolutely. So the book is called You're on Fire, It's Fine. You can get it anywhere you buy your books online. And the website is you'reonfireitsfine.com. That's where you can find places to connect with me, the parent membership, any other resources that are on the website are free and available to you as well.
Fantastic. And is that parenting membership available to people only in your city and state?
No, that is globally. We wanted to find a way to support people outside of the state of Pennsylvania where we're licensed. So parent membership is available to anyone who can access the internet. And there's a lot of resources and live support in there that's great for parents, especially of teenagers with self-destructive behaviors is the focus of the membership.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for doing this work. We will link everything in the show notes. And I just appreciate your time and this necessary work that you're doing with your team.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.